Thank you for joining me for the continuation of the cliffhanger from yesterday for day 325 here today, Friday, November 20th, 2020, focusing on Acts chapters 22 and 23. Now, the cliffhanger we left off yesterday had a mob shouting murderous threats and Paul persuading the Roman court officials to allow him to speak to the mob. In Acts 22, verse 3, we hear, I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, educated strictly according to the ancestral law, being zealous for God, just as all of you are today. I persecuted this way up to the point of death by binding both men and women and putting them in prison. Paul continues to lay out his history, including two visions from Jesus, one there on the road to Damascus, and another one as he was praying after the road to Damascus in the temple in Jerusalem. Now, upon this, the crowd again riots, causing the Roman agents to intervene. Before Paul is severely flogged, Paul plays his card, saying, I am a Roman citizen. This Roman citizenship means that they are to treat him with respect as he is a Roman citizen, and the Roman courts have appeal to him, and that he will get treated through the Roman legal system. He has rights within the Roman way of life. So the Roman tribune, who is an appointed Roman official, pauses the investigation for the night. And in the morning, the Roman tribune takes Paul before the Jewish council. There in Acts 23, Paul begins his defense with the council, to which the high priest orders Paul to be struck. Now, this sounds very familiar to Jesus being struck during his passion in John 18:22. When he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, Is that how you answer the high priest? Jesus answered, If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me? It is interesting that the high priest is called Ananias. I say this for two reasons. In the Old Testament, the high priest occupied the role for a lifetime. So it makes sense to me that the high priest could be Annas, the high priest there connected with Jesus' crucifixion. Now, it's also strange that Paul, a devout Pharisee, does not know who the high priest is, even though he mentions earlier that in Acts 22, verse 5, quote, the high priest and the whole council of elders can testify about me. This supports a theory that the high priest was rather an appointment by the Romans instead of, quote, as Paul describes here, a leader of your people. So, is the high priest chosen by God, or is the high priest chosen by Rome? That's kind of the idea that is being wrestled with here in Paul's trial. Now, Paul continues by saying that he is, in Acts 23, verse 6, quote, on trial concerning the hope of the resurrection of the dead. This gets the Sadducees and the Pharisees to debate over something they differ about. Really, namely, the resurrection of the dead and of angels, and really the authority of visions. With the Pharisaic brethren, possibly those who were trained under Gamaliel as well, agreeing with Paul. So Paul actually has people of the council on his side. Now tempers again flare into violence, and the Roman tribune takes Paul back to the prison before he is harmed. Paul receives encouragement from a vision of Jesus that night. In Acts 23, verse 11, that night the Lord stood near him and said, Keep up your courage. For just as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, so you must bear witness also in Rome. To fulfill this, the Roman tribute discovers a conspiracy to kill Paul, and instead of sending Paul to his death at the hands of the conspirators, the tribute carts Paul to the Roman governor, Felix. The tribute writes a letter of explanation, stating, similar to Jesus, that the disciple Paul, quote, was charged with nothing deserving death or imprisonment. Paul is then kept in Herod's headquarters in Caesarea, waiting 5 days before he makes his defense through the Roman court systems. There's a lot of similarities between Paul's persecution and Jesus' persecution. And at the same time, too, Paul is a vessel of Jesus, and in fact, speaking on behalf of this Jesus who was crucified and risen. We give thanks that we get to testify to what we witness to in our day and time, and to speak boldly about the words of God's life, of the gospel of Jesus, one that gives us life and hope even in the midst of uncertainty in our day and our time. So thank you for joining me. I look forward to discussing more about Paul's fate coming up next time.